Guys, so we're gonna get started with a quick quiz. If everybody can join, everyone that's here can jump on it. And
there he is.
You got everyone? All right.
Let's do this.
All right, let's go ahead, guys. Get started.
Where's yours?
I won the $1,000. What fifth? But Landy doesn't count because, I mean...
Anna, first.
Anna.
Good job, Anna.
First place and last place. Yes, we work together. Yes.
Good job, good job.
That's what
All right, let's review.
Teacher, can you do the rewards?
Huh?
Awards?
Yeah, we're gonna do awards later. Awards summit.
Thank you, teacher.
Awesome.
Rewards. Awards. Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna start with the first question. We're gonna review. They're not in order, guys, so don't get confused. Okay, and I'm glad there's so many mortgage reps here because there's gonna be a few questions that you guys can chime in on. Okay, where can you find the supply and demand on the MLS? Okay, most people got this one right. 7 people had absorption report. Who's familiar? Who remembers me giving a class, or I don't know if you guys saw any of our videos, where you can find out how many months supply there are on the market. So I'll show you guys in a second again where you can find that. But it's not the hot sheets, it's not the area statistics, it's not the archive, it's the absorption report. So while I have your attention, I will show you where you can find that. So we come right here to where it says analysis. We go to the absorption report. We can check by the town or by the price. We can go to Union County, or we can just pick one of the towns in general. Let's just say we're specifically working on Scotch Plains. We can pick today's date. We can go 6 months, 12 months back. We'll just stick with the 6 months. And here it'll tell us how many active listings there are right now, 78. How many solds there have been in the last 6 months. And our average average sold per month is 22 homes per month sell in Scotch Plains. So in a pretty decent, healthy market. There's only 3.5 months supply of inventory, so that means things move pretty quickly. So if you ever take a listing in a town you're unfamiliar with, you want to learn about the absorption report and the availability of properties before you go and meet with them. And if you talk to a client about statistics, you're going to be in a really good position because they may ask you, you're not a local agent, but if you hit them with more statistics than a local agent does, then you guys will definitely have a better chance. Next question. Where can you find a detailed flood map? Okay. On Realist. Okay, so 7 people got this one right. The best so far that I found, besides FEMA.gov, FEMA.gov has flood maps, but they're really difficult to read. I'm not sure who's gotten to them before. But if you're not a member of Realist, there's a lot of, if you're not a member of New Jersey MLS, there's a really good reason to join New Jersey MLS or Middlesex MLS. They both have Realist as their tax map. So what you guys can do is here where it says Realist, you just plug in an address and you can see if it's in a flood zone. Who has a house that's in a flood, or not has a house, but who knows of an address that's in a flood zone?
305 West 5th Street.
Okay.
Andy and I did recently.
305 West 5th Street, Roselle. And didn't it come to light that it was in a flood zone after you guys went into contract?
Mr. Cabo didn't disclose that.
No. West 5th Street, 205 West 5th. Why isn't that showing up?
Mortgage company picked up.
Yeah, the mortgage company's fault. It's definitely for sure. Okay, all right, guys. So when you get to this screen, you just click on the last tab that you see here on the right, where it says flood map. And you can see that the property lies in a X500 and an AE flood zone. So for this, you may want to tell your client right ahead of time that they may want to reconsider making their offer, because if they spend money on their appraisal or if they spend money on their inspection and they find out about this later, they might get pretty upset with you that you didn't find this information out for them beforehand. Thank God that deal ended up going through, right? Close?
Yeah.
That deal close? Yeah. So that client was very, I guess, open to this, but most people will get really upset. And this happened to me as well. I bought a house and I flipped it. I fixed it, renovated, spent a lot of money on it and put it on the market. I only found out it was in a flood zone when the person made an offer. I swear to you, I had no clue. And this is a shame on me because I was in the business for a long time. I didn't even check. I just thought that my title company would have told me if it was or wasn't. But they didn't, obviously it was not their responsibility to tell me that.
Do a flood cert. So when
No, they did one. That was the worst thing. They did one, they just didn't tell me.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
One thing to note, when you have properties that are in a flood zone and your buyers are FHA requires FEMA insurance, and that's typically 2 to 3 times as much as private flood insurance.
Yikes.
So if you have the ability to switch to conventional, you can particularly save a deal from a debt ratio standpoint if you can go from FHA to conventional and get them private flood insurance, which is what we did on that farm.
Anything in an X is okay, guys. That means it's not in a flood zone. You say something?
Oh, peace.
Oh, peace. Okay, let's move on to our next question. Okay, when should you order a title search on a short sale? There might be different answers for this, but I'll tell you from experience what has happened to me. So your options were before making an offer. Obviously, before making an offer, it can get pretty costly if you're making a lot of offers. So that might not be the best choice. After the home inspection, maybe not, and I'll explain why. Or after you get a commitment. This is what most people will tell you to do, and what most attorneys will do is get it after the commitment has been issued. But you should actually get it right away as soon as you have locked in that deal, after your contract has been signed and the attorneys have reviewed it and everything looks okay. Order it right away, because there's going to be other things that are going to show up on title. As Ella has found out, there's always unsuspecting things that'll show up. So if you've negotiated your short sale and then you order title afterwards, if there's things that pop up, sometimes the bank may say, I don't want to pay for those things anymore. The short sale bank may say, we're not going to pay for those things. You should have included it in your initial negotiations on your HUD when you first submitted it. So you should actually get a title search done. Just a search. You don't have to get a full-blown title policy, just a search. And get those things negotiated right away, get them out of the way, and then you know what you're dealing with. Because if you're going to spend 6 months on a short sale, a year on a short sale, just to find out later that there's a huge lien that is going to stop you from closing on this property, that's a lot of wasted time and effort on your part. Anyone want to add to this? Okay, next question. Who pays the transfer tax in a sheriff's sale? Okay, 15 people got this right. It's the buyer. It's not the sheriff, it's not the bank, and it's not the foreclosure attorney. So normally in a real estate transaction, the seller pays for the transfer tax. And there's a calculator online that you guys can use by just Googling NJ transfer tax calculator. And you can use whatever shows up in first or second place. Those tax calculators are very accurate. So if your client ever wants to know, your seller wants to know, how much is my transfer tax going to be, you can just go to a website, any website, NJ transfer tax calculator. And there's actually Realtor.com. NJ Realtor has one that's pretty good. If you put here, okay, the house is going to be sold for $200,000, and you just calculate, it's going to tell you here that it's going to be $935 for transfer taxes. Okay. Next question. How long is the redemption period in a sheriff's sale? All right, 2 sheriff's sale questions for you guys today. It's 10 days. It's not 1 year, 6 months, or 5 business days, but it's 10 days. The only exception to this is the U.S. government. Well, not the government, sorry, I apologize, right? It's the IRS. The IRS has a 120-day redemption period, so that means that they can come and lay claim to that property 120 days after the sheriff's sale. Now, they usually don't. 99% of the time, 0.9% of the time they don't, because that's not what they're geared up to do. Most title companies who know about sheriff sales will insure those with open IRS liens. So that's something for you guys to know. It may scare away some other people, but if you guys educate yourselves enough, you know that this could probably be insured over by a good title company. But 10 days, the seller will have a redemption period where they can come and pay off their debt to the bank and they can get their house back, or they can file for bankruptcy within that 10-day period too, and they can stop the whole procedure from taking place. So this is good for you guys to know. Whoever wants to get into sheriff sales or represent their clients in sheriff sales, you need to know these things. When can you schedule a closing? I think Claudia had a question about this, because she said there were 2 right answers for this. Okay, so let's go over them. Which 2 of the answers, Claudia, do you think are correct?
I usually use commitment, and of course 3 days after the CD's out.
Mm-hmm.
both of those are right now.
Okay. Could something happen after the commitment is issued to delay closing if you have a closing date? So let's just,
So, do you mind?
Good enough, go ahead.
Well, as long as you get the LE out before the commitment, if you lock the rate, as long as you get the LE out, you can actually issue the CD the same day as the commitment.
Yeah.
The LE is what actually stopped us from issuing the commitment.
Yeah.
What is the LE?
LE is a loan estimate, I'm sorry.
Loan
Loan
estimate.
estimate.
Oh, okay.
So if you lock this, for example, if you lock the rate, I run into this issue a lot. If I want to close the following Friday, I actually have to lock the rate on the previous Friday to issue the CD on Monday to be able to close on Thursday. And I usually like to do it on Monday so that way I have some leeway in case, God forbid, something happens. Because expectations mean everything.
could anything happen after the LE is sent out?
100%. So
Yeah.
that's a matter of, I guess, preference. The closing disclosure would be when you would schedule closing, because after the commitment is issued, it's typically, unless you have control of the entire transaction, that's when your attorney's ordering title.
Yeah.
And as we just said, title.
There could be
So
more
if you
issues, too.
if commitment is issued and you're scheduling a closing, and then title is just getting ordered after that,
Yeah.
then you have.
Not that there's any safe answer here, but I think the safest answer would be 3 days after the CD is signed, because the homeowner probably, the buyer probably did their walkthrough already, right? They've already okayed the numbers, and there's very little that can happen between then and then, but not to say that that's perfect either.
Correct. The highest probability is when your CD is going out, because your CD is not going out unless your title's clear.
Yeah.
Unless you got homeowners, you're 95% there once the CD goes out.
And to piggyback what Landy's saying, what you really want is a preliminary CD from the title company with all the fees, the attorney fees and all that before you even consider thinking about locking the rate, because that way those fees won't change. Because if those fees change, then you have to reissue another CD, and that's another problem in itself.
Okay, which program does not allow for the buyer, I'm sorry, did I write the word this right? Which program does not allow for the buyer to have no money out of pocket? Sorry, that's what I meant to write.
It's actually false. This is wrong. So
Okay. Homestyle allows you to be no money out of pocket?
no,
Isn't it 5%?
no, it's USDA because USDA is 100% finance.
I answered USDA on that, right?
Yeah.
What you worded it incorrectly. Which program
you guys are-
allows for you to have no money out of pocket, which
It's
is
USDA.
USDA.
No. It's actually, which program does not allow for the buyer to have no money out of pocket?
That's two negatives.
Oh, I get it. Oh, I get it. No, I get it. You know what? The VA and USDA is 100%, but you can bring
It's not-
deposit costs.
It's not two negatives because I'm saying no money out of pocket.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
That's why I
So
think you're
FHA, all
right,
money
because
can be
I
gifted.
really
I
understand.
Yeah.
understand.
English
Now I
is my second
understand.
language.
Yes. So we,
Homestyle is the only one you have to bring money to the table.
yeah.
Question's got a lot of arms.
Yeah.
Huh? All right. So VA, can you get a loan with no money down?
It's 100%.
Okay.
Seller's concession.
USDA, can you get a loan with no money down? Okay. FHA, can you get a loan with no money out of pocket? Correct. So guys, with FHA, and I'll let you guys take the stage on this, the loan officers that are here. There were programs back in the day like Nehemiah and these other programs that people used to get grants from in order to cover their down payment. And these things are starting to come back from what I hear. But FHA does allow the buyer to have no money out of pocket, both on the down payment and the closing costs. So that's why it's been such a popular option for so many years. USDA not so much because that's more for rural areas, and VA obviously only for your veterans. Veterans, not everyone's a veteran. With Homestyle, this is a Fannie Mae product that allows people to do renovations on their home without having to use a government backed loan like a 203K. This is still technically government, but it's Fannie Mae. So this requires a minimum of at least 5%, right? Am I correct? Yeah, 5% on Homestyle. So for the loan officers that are here, why don't you guys just give us some background on these loans?
Well, I do a lot of Homestyle. I do a lot of 203K. So what's the coolest thing about Homestyle, if you're actually an investor, right, they actually have a one-family investment property 15% down that you get the repairs. Which, if you know, all investment for the minimum is going to be 20 to 25% depending on the investor. So that's the coolest thing about Homestyle. Other than that, it's just like a 203K. You take the repairs, you put it on top of the purchase price, and you do the down payment from that. But that's the coolest thing about Homestyle, that a single family investment property can be 15% down when it's normally 20, 25%.
And just with USDA, I know everybody's like, it's rural. Just check, there's different towns that, even going out as far as where Harry has some of the properties going out towards Hunterdon County, even as close as that, you're getting those properties, you can get those USDAs. So it's really not that far out of the area.
Population is 20,000.
Yeah.
That needs to be.
So there's more opportunities than what you would think, even in New Jersey, for USDA loans.
Next question. When should an exclusive or non-exclusive buyer's agreement be signed? All right, most people got this one right at the initial meeting, correct. So it's not at the time of the contract is signed because that is the wrong practice. It's not when you find the right property, and it's not after the home is out of attorney review. It's at the initial meeting. So if you meet with a client for the first time and they tell you, I want a $50,000 house, right? No problem, $50,000 house, I'm your guy. But how much money are you going to make on that? Very little, right? So if you want to be compensated for your time and you want to make sure that the client is also represented correctly, and there's not an issue with commission, while this shouldn't be a reason why you're going not to work with somebody. You can use an exclusive or non-exclusive buyer's agreement to represent that person and still get the compensation that you would normally get on a transaction. That is one of the reasons to use one. Obviously, the other reasons is because you want to establish a relationship with your client, so they understand that, hey, listen, I'm not going to run around with you and then you're going to go buy a house with someone else or just walk into an open house and make an offer. So these documents should always be signed at the moment of initial meeting when the CIS is signed. So for the future, you guys should never date these the day of the contract or any day after the CIS has been signed as well. Okay, this one is this will really be a good question for you if you ever go to a listing appointment, which you guys should be going on. If you guys go on a listing appointment where they're interviewing other agents and they told you we're interviewing other agents, you guys should come up with a list of questions they should ask other agents, right? If you leave them with just 5 questions to say, so they can ask any agent coming after you. What if one of the questions is, make sure your agent knows what DU and LP is? And most agents will freeze up and be like, DU or LP? Like they won't know. This is one of the questions you can ask. You can ask a question like, what is the absorption rate in this town? You can ask all these questions for the following agents that are coming after you to be questioned on, and if they have no idea, it's going to make them look bad. It's going to make you look really good. So so it's not always the worst thing in the world to go first. As a real estate interview, you can go first or you can go last. But I mean, at the same time, if you do go first, they're probably going to remember you least because they're going to meet with other people. But if you leave some kind of a question list for them, I think they can.
So what other questions would you ask?
Well, you guys can sit down and formulate them, and we can come up with some questions to ask as well. But the questions we're asking here in these quizzes that we're taking, you could take some of these and ask them as well. Like there was a couple mortgage questions here that we could ask. You can ask about, do they know what the best way to market a property on Facebook is, or do they know, how to use Facebook's marketing platform, different things like that. You can ask them to, real technical questions that only you would know, and see how they fare up with those questions when they're asked. All right, so the question here is, what does DU mean when it comes to mortgages, and who uses it? Okay, so 11 people got this one right. It is desktop underwrite. It's used by Fannie Mae. And Landy, I'll let you take this one.
All right, so desktop underwriter is Fannie Mae's automated engine. It basically evaluates the buyer's ability to buy. It analyzes the assets, the debt to income, which is in plain English how much they make per month gross versus how much they have to pay, and ultimately evaluates the risk on that loan. So depending on the amount of reserves, there's different nuances that would allow one particular buyer to borrow more than another. Assets being one, time on the job, rent history, etc. So it takes all these algorithms and puts it into one system and says, this person can borrow up to 50% of their income. This other person can only do 45. This other person can only do 40 if it's a manual, depending on credit history. So it basically is what Fannie Mae uses to insure that loan. So DU is obviously very important, because if you get a refer or a refer with caution, then those people are in trouble. It's looking for more, typically individuals that'll have assets. That's kind of where it's open season. If you have a year worth of your mortgage payment in the bank, I've seen DU go up to numbers that, to typically you wouldn't see. VA also uses DU, and VA, if you have veterans, that's a very underserved area. You know, ask that question: are you a veteran? Have you?
Rock, there's a chair up here. You want?
Because veterans have the ability to put no money down with no monthly PMI, and DU, we've seen them up to 70 back end.
Wow,
get approved.
That's crazy.
You know, so that's that. If you're looking for a niche, always, you know, people don't ask that. Have you served in the military? Because if you have, that's the absolute best loan. You're getting a government rate with no PMI and no money down.
Yeah, I had to join the armed forces for a couple of years and come back to it.
LP is Freddie Mac's version of Fannie Mae. I'm sorry, Freddie Mac's version of their automated engine. And there's differences there that are program specific.
Yeah.
The Home Possible being one of the biggest advantages. Obviously, the 5% down, 2-family. That's something that's only through Freddie Mac, not Fannie Mae.
All right, last question. How much money did Louis Leva make his first year in real estate? This is a really interesting one. Interesting one. So a lot of people gave me a lot of credit. You guys gave me a lot of credit. 124,000 would have been a nice first year. Yeah.
And what agency was that?
15,000. I started my career back in 2003 at Century 21 Cologne Realty. That was in Elizabeth on Railway Avenue. And I started to get things. I started to understand it. But it took me a year to figure out, you know, what I was doing. And I was doing this full time, guys. I wasn't doing it like 2 hours a day and then going to my other job. I was doing it full time. So it was tough the first year. Landy actually was there when I first started, and he got a lot of calls from me, but nothing really that was sticking. So $20,000 my first year, guys, is pretty like, I guess that's the industry norm. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I guess that wasn't that much money. But I wasn't there for the money. And as long as I was not doing what I was doing before, I was happy. And I knew what I was meant to do was this. So I just kept going at it, and I'm glad that Harry shared that video today with us, because that video actually taps into exactly what I'm showing you here. You know, I started in this business with no money, no experience, just trying to find my way. And I made a whole whopping 20 grand. I could have made more flipping fries and burgers at Burger King or McDonald's, but I stuck with it. And there were some times where I was like really like doubting myself and trying to figure out whether this was, you know, the right thing for me. But the next year after that was an incredible 6-figure year for me. And I mean, take home, you know, that was just what I needed. I just needed that 1 year to kind of like give myself, pay my dues and just figure things out and start to learn. And it was much harder for me than it is for you guys, because I did it with no mentor and I did it with no help. You know, I did it just figuring things out on my own, trial and error. But you guys have everyone in this office who has more experience than you. You guys could tap into them. And obviously with me, my #1 priority is to help you guys and make sure your business is better. So don't get down on yourselves if this year is going to be tough, if your first year is hard. Or even if you're in a rut, it's only temporary. You just got to figure out what's wrong, and you got to figure out what you do right, because everyone's strengths are different. So figure out what you're good at and just do more of that, you know, and delegate everything else. You know, thankfully, you know, everyone here is good at something, so we could always ask the other person in this office, hey, can you teach me how to do this a little better? Or, hey, you know, I really need help with that. Is there a way that you've overcome it? You know, what I like about this office is everybody's has a background in something. You know, like if it's marketing, you may want to ask someone about marketing. If it's, you know, prospecting, you can ask Petros, hey, Petros, you know, what do I say to these people? Or can you listen to me and give me some pointers, or whatever it is? But you guys will definitely get help from anyone that...
I have a background on children.
You have a background in children? Taking care of children?
I need children.
I'm doing children.
What is that, Anna?
I need love.
You need Lem? No, but seriously, guys, I mean, it's definitely, you guys can count on each other for anything here. And it isn't all about money in the beginning. If you're in the right place and you feel like this is like the right industry for you, money will come. The money comes after you put in the work.